On the edge of Maplewood, a small town where everyone knew each other's business and history, an old abandoned barn stood silent against the fading daylight. Its weathered wood and sagging roof told stories of long-forgotten days, its windows clouded with decades of dust and time. When Clara arrived one chilly autumn afternoon, clutching a worn suitcase and a tightly wrapped bundle of belongings, the sight of the barn was both a relief and a challenge. It was her sanctuary now, a place she chose in the face of uncertainty, even if the town's whispers followed her like shadows. Clara was visibly pregnant, her hand resting gently on her belly as she approached the barn. She'd moved into Maplewood only days before, leaving behind a life tangled with pain and unanswered questions. The barn, though dilapidated and isolated, represented a fresh start, a quiet refuge where she could prepare for the baby she hoped would bring new meaning to her world. But as she stepped inside, the air was thick with dust, the floorboards creaking beneath her feet, and the scent of hay long past its prime filled the space. It wasn't much, but it was hers now. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. Word of Clara's arrival spread quickly through the town's narrow streets and cozy porches. The townspeople gathered in small clusters, their voices low but laced with judgment. Why would she pick that old barn? It's no place for a woman, let alone one with a baby on the way. Mrs. Abernathy muttered to her neighbor as they watched from across the street. Others nodded, whispering tales of the barn's neglect, its reputation as a place for drifters and troublemakers. The barn's isolation only fueled their doubts, reinforcing their belief that Clara was an outsider who didn't belong. Despite the cold stares and pointed fingers, Clara remained resolute. The barn's broken windows let in the autumn breeze, stirring the faded curtains that once hung in the hayloft. She unpacked her few belongings carefully, setting up a small cot near the corner where the light filtered in just right. She had a makeshift nursery, a quilted blanket, a basket of supplies, and a few hand-me-down baby clothes she'd brought with her. It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark hope. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara sat on the worn wooden floor, her back resting against the barn's sturdy beam. She traced the grain of the wood with trembling fingers, feeling the history embedded in the structure. The barn had once been the heart of a thriving farm, bustling with life and purpose. Now it was quiet, almost forgotten, much like how Clara felt inside. Yet, within its walls, she dared to dream of new beginnings. The townspeople's skepticism was not just about the barn's condition, it was a reflection of their fear of change and the unknown. Clara's presence disturbed the delicate balance of their peaceful lives. To them, she was a mystery wrapped in silence, a pregnant woman who chose solitude over the comfort of community. But Clara knew that sometimes healing required distance, a place where she could gather strength away from prying eyes and whispered judgments. As night fell, the barn creaked under the weight of the wind, shadows dancing across the rough wooden planks. Clara pulled a threadbare shawl tighter around her shoulders, feeling the baby's gentle kicks like small reminders of life amid the uncertainty. She whispered promises to her unborn child, vows of protection and love that would carry them through the days ahead. This barn, with all its flaws and scars, would be their refuge. The following morning, a few curious eyes lingered as Clara stepped outside, her silhouette framed by the rising sun. Some townsfolk ventured closer, their expressions a mixture of caution and intrigue. Among them was Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly woman who ran the town's general store. She approached slowly, offering a nod of acknowledgement. "It's a fine place, if you can make it yours," she said softly, her voice carrying a hint of warmth beneath the skepticism. Clara smiled faintly, grateful for the small gesture. "I plan to," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves. She explained that she intended to restore the barn, making it a home not just for herself, but for the child she awaited. The idea seemed foreign to many, but it planted a seed of curiosity that would grow in time. As days turned into weeks, Clara began the slow, painstaking work of transforming the barn. She swept away layers of dust and debris, repaired broken boards when she could, and cleared out the overgrown weeds that crept along the edges. Each task was a testament to her determination, a physical manifestation of her desire to rebuild her life from the ground up. The barn, once a symbol of neglect, was becoming a canvas for hope. Despite the hard work, Clara faced moments of doubt and exhaustion. There were nights when the loneliness pressed in, and the cold seeped through the thin walls. But she was never truly alone. The baby's movements were a constant reassurance, a heartbeat that synchronized with her own. She found comfort in the quiet rhythms of the barn, the distant hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves outside, the steady creak of the wooden beams settling into the night. The townspeople's initial ridicule did not go unnoticed by Clara, but she chose to focus on the future rather than the present judgment. She knew that acceptance would come not through words, but through actions. Her actions and those of the barn itself. There was something sacred about reclaiming a space that others had abandoned, breathing new life into it with love and care. One afternoon, as Clara rested on the barn's porch, a young boy from the town approached cautiously. His name was Ben, a quiet boy who helped his family with farming chores nearby. He stood at a distance, watching her with wide eyes, curiosity overcoming the hesitance he'd been taught. Clara smiled gently, inviting him closer without words. When he finally stepped forward, their silent understanding marked the beginning of a connection that neither expected. Ben's presence was a quiet comfort, a reminder that Clara was not entirely alone in this new chapter. He didn't judge or question. Instead, he offered simple acts of kindness. A basket of fresh eggs, a jug of water, his company during the long afternoons. In a town wary of change, Clara found in Ben a bridge between isolation and community. A small but vital thread weaving her into the fabric of Maplewood. As the barn's walls began to shed their dust and the first signs of life took root, Clara's resolve deepened. This was not just a place to shelter her body, but a sanctuary for her soul. She was determined to prove to herself and the town that the barn could be more than a relic of the past. It could be the birthplace of new stories, new hopes, and new beginnings. And so, beneath the fading light of autumn, amidst the skepticism and whispers, Clara prepared to nurture the life growing inside her. The barn, once a symbol of abandonment, was slowly becoming a home filled with quiet courage and the promise of tomorrow. Days turned into weeks, and the once desolate barn began to stir with a quiet energy that mirrored Clara's growing hope. The soft light filtered through the cracked windows, illuminating the dust motes that danced in the air, and the faint smell of fresh hay mingled with the scent of the earth outside. Clara's routine settled into a rhythm, measured by the baby's gentle kicks and the slow, steady work of reclaiming the barn from years of neglect. It was during one of these mornings, as the sun cast long shadows across the fields, that Clara first noticed Ben watching her from a distance. He stood just beyond the edge of the barnyard, hands tucked into the pockets of his faded overalls, his gaze steady but cautious. Clara had seen him before, a quiet presence in the background. But today he stepped closer, curiosity winning over hesitation. "Morning." Clara greeted him softly, wiping her hands on the worn fabric of her skirt. The barn's floor creaked underfoot as she moved toward the door, her breath visible in the crisp air. Ben nodded, offering a shy smile. "You're doing a lot of work," he said, his voice low but sincere. "That barn's been empty for a long time. Not many would bother fixing it up." Clara returned the smile, feeling a flicker of warmth at his words. "It's going to be a home," she said simply. "For me and my baby." The mention of the baby softened Ben's expression, and he shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "I live just over that hill," he explained, nodding toward the small farmhouse in the distance. "My family's been here for generations. I know a bit about this land." That day marked the beginning of a fragile friendship, built not on grand declarations, but on the quiet exchange of stories and shared silences. Ben began visiting the barn more often, sometimes bringing small gifts, a basket of fresh eggs from his chickens, a jar of honey, or a loaf of crusty bread baked by his mother. Clara accepted these tokens with gratitude, the simple acts easing the edges of her isolation. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the wooden beams overhead, Ben sat beside Clara on a worn crate, the two of them watching the dust swirl in the light. "Do you want to hear about the barn?" he asked, breaking the comfortable quiet. Clara nodded eagerly, her eyes bright with interest. She had been so focused on the present that the barn's past remained a mystery to her. Ben's voice was soft but steady as he recounted what he knew. "My great-grandfather built this barn nearly 100 years ago. It was the heart of the farm, where the crops were stored and the animals sheltered through harsh winters. The family worked hard, and the barn was a place of laughter and life." Clara listened intently, picturing the barn as it must have been, full of warmth and purpose, the air thick with the sounds of farm life. The stories breathed new life into the weathered wood and cracked paint. "But then," Ben continued, "the farm changed hands a few times. No one cared for the barn like before. It fell into disrepair, and the townsfolk started to forget what it really meant to us." Clara's fingers traced the edge of a loose board, the weight of history settling around her. "It's like the barn has been waiting," she murmured. "Waiting for someone to remember." Ben nodded, his eyes reflecting a quiet hope. "Maybe you're the one to bring it back." Their conversations became a daily ritual, each visit weaving Clara deeper into the fabric of the land and the town's collective memory. Ben showed her how to identify the wild herbs growing near the barn, pointing out the ones that could soothe morning sickness or strengthen the body. He taught her which trees bore the sweetest fruit and where the soil ran richest for planting. Clara, in turn, shared fragments of her own story, carefully measured and guarded. She spoke of the life she left behind, the reasons she sought solitude in this forgotten place, and the dreams she held for the child who would soon arrive. Ben listened without judgment, offering a steady presence that felt like an anchor in the shifting tides of her emotions. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of lavender and rose, Clara and Ben sat on the barn's creaking porch, watching the fireflies blink to life among the tall grasses. The air was thick with the scent of earth and wood smoke, and the world seemed to hold its breath in that tranquil moment. "You're not like the others," Ben said quietly, breaking the silence. "They don't understand why you chose this place. But I think it's brave." Clara's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, touched by the simple truth of his words. "Sometimes," "The bravest thing is to choose hope," she replied softly. In the weeks that followed, Ben's quiet support became a lifeline. He helped Clara repair the barn's broken doors, reinforcing the hinges with iron he'd forged himself. Together, they cleared out the old hay, replacing it with fresh straw that smelled sweet and clean. Ben even crafted a small cradle from salvaged wood, its surface smooth and worn by time, ready to hold the new life soon to come. Their friendship blossomed in the shared labor and whispered conversations beneath a canopy of stars. Ben's stories about the barn's past became a bridge to the future Clara was building, linking her present to the town's heritage in a way that softened the walls of suspicion around her. The townspeople began to notice the change, too. The barn that once stood as a symbol of neglect now echoed with the sounds of hammering and laughter. Clara's perseverance and Ben's steady presence sparked a quiet curiosity among the neighbors, who started to see the barn not as a relic to be mocked, but as a place where something precious was taking root. One afternoon, as Clara rested on a patchwork quilt in the barn's corner, Ben brought her a handful of wildflowers he'd picked from the meadow nearby. "For you and the baby," he said, placing them gently beside her. Clara smiled, overwhelmed by the simple kindness. "Thank you, Ben, for everything." He shrugged shyly but didn't look away. "I'm glad you're here. It feels like the barn's coming back to life." With each passing day, the bond between Clara and Ben deepened, built on trust, shared history, and the quiet hope that grew within the old barn's walls. In the face of the town's lingering doubts, they found a connection that transcended words, a friendship forged in the soil, strengthened by stories and nurtured by the promise of new beginnings. Clara often found herself watching Ben as he worked, admiring the way his hands moved with care and purpose. There was a gentleness beneath his quiet demeanor, a steadfastness that mirrored the barn's own resilience. In him, Clara saw a reflection of the life she wanted to build, a life grounded in community, history, and the courage to heal. One cool morning, as frost clung to the tall grass and the horizon glowed with the first light of dawn, Ben arrived with a small wooden box. Inside were tools and supplies, gifts from his family to help Clara prepare for the baby's arrival. The gesture spoke volumes, breaking through the town's walls of suspicion, one small act at a time. As Clara accepted the gifts, her heart swelled with gratitude and newfound hope. The barn was no longer just a shelter. It was becoming a home filled with friendship, history, and the promise of love. And with Ben by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing she was no longer alone in this journey. One crisp morning, as the sun cast golden light across the dew-kissed fields, Clara found herself drawn deeper into the barn's hidden past. The air inside was still cool, carrying faint whispers of forgotten days. The barn had become more than a shelter. It was a living memory, and Clara's curiosity tugged at her relentlessly. She knew there was more to uncover. Stories buried beneath layers of dust and time, waiting to be remembered. Ben arrived just as Clara was opening a loose floorboard near the back corner of the barn. His quiet presence was comforting, steadying her as she pried the wood free, revealing a small concealed compartment beneath. Inside lay a collection of yellowed papers wrapped in a faded cloth, their edges brittle but intact. Clara's heart quickened with a mix of excitement and reverence as she carefully unfolded the fragile letters. The letters were handwritten, penned in elegant script that spoke of a different era. They were addressed to a woman named Margaret, a name Clara had never heard, but one that seemed intimately tied to the barn's story. The letters spoke of love and loss, hope and despair, revealing a family tragedy that had long been erased from the town's collective memory. Ben leaned closer, his eyes scanning the words with growing recognition. "Margaret was my great-aunt," he said softly. "She lived here before the farm was sold. These letters, they tell a story no one talks about." As Clara read through the correspondence, the narrative unfolded. Margaret had been engaged to a man named Thomas, whose family had once owned the barn and surrounding land. Their love had been fierce, but fraught with hardship. The letters revealed a secret illness that had struck Thomas, leaving Margaret to care for him alone as the world around them changed. The farm, once vibrant and full of life, had slowly withered under the weight of tragedy and neglect. Clara traced the lines of the letters, feeling the weight of unspoken sorrow and resilience. "It's like the barn holds their story in every beam and nail," she whispered, her fingers trembling slightly. Ben nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "Most folks here don't want to remember. It's easier to forget the pain and pretend the past never happened." But Clara felt differently. The discovery connected her more deeply to the place she had chosen as her refuge. The barn was not just a structure. It was a vessel of memory, a link between the past and the future she hoped to build. The letters gave voice to those who had lived and loved here before, reminding her that even in sorrow, there was strength. Together, Clara and Ben carefully cataloged the letters, reading each one aloud as the afternoon sun warmed the barn's worn floor. They pieced together fragments of a family's history, moments of joy, whispered promises, and the gradual unraveling of dreams. The story was heartbreaking yet beautiful, a testament to endurance in the face of loss. As they delved deeper, Clara found herself reflecting on her own journey. Like Margaret, she was navigating a path marked by uncertainty and hope. The barn's hidden past became a mirror for her present struggles, offering lessons in courage and the power of memory. That evening, as twilight settled over Maplewood, Clara sat quietly by the barn's open doorway. The letters spread across her lap. The soft glow of lantern light illuminated her face, revealing a mixture of determination and tenderness. She felt a profound connection to the generations that had come before, their stories weaving into the tapestry of her own life. Ben joined her, sitting close and sharing the silence. "We should tell the town," he said finally. "They need to know the barn story, the real story." Clara hesitated, aware of the lingering skepticism that shadowed her presence. But she also knew that the past held the key to healing, not just for her, but for the entire community. The letters were a bridge, a way to reclaim the barn's legacy and transform it from a symbol of neglect into one of remembrance and renewal. In the days that followed, Clara and Ben began sharing the letters with a few trusted townsfolk, inviting them into the barn to hear the voices of the past. Reactions were mixed. Some met the revelations with surprise, others with quiet reflection. Slowly, the barn's history began to resurface in conversations and memories, knitting the community closer together. Mrs. Jenkins, who had once regarded Clara with suspicion, became an unexpected ally. She brought her own stories of Margaret and the farm, adding warmth and color to the narrative. The barn, once a place of ridicule, started to feel like a shared treasure, a repository of the town's identity. Clara found solace in this growing acceptance, her confidence bolstered by the knowledge that she was part of something larger than herself. The barn's walls echoed with renewed purpose, its shadows lightened by the stories now spoken aloud. One afternoon, as Clara and Ben cleared a corner of the barn to create a small reading nook, they discovered a faded photograph tucked between the pages of an old journal. It showed Margaret and Thomas, standing side by side in front of the barn, their faces luminous with hope and love. The image captured a moment frozen in time, a reminder that life, with all its fragility and beauty, endured. Clara held the photograph reverently, feeling the weight of history in her hands. "We're not just restoring a building," she said softly. "We're restoring the heart of this place." Ben smiled, his eyes reflecting the same quiet determination. "And maybe, in doing that, we're healing more than just the barn." As autumn deepened, the barn transformed from a forgotten relic into a living testament to resilience and connection. Clara's pregnancy progressed, the baby's movements a constant reminder of new life emerging from the past's shadows. The letters and photographs became cherished artifacts, their stories shared around kitchen tables and community gatherings. Through it all, Clara and Ben's bond grew stronger, rooted in mutual respect and the shared mission to honor the barn's legacy. Their friendship was a quiet rebellion against isolation, a declaration that even in the face of loss and judgment, hope could flourish. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara sat by the barn's window, the letters resting on her lap. She traced the words once more, feeling the presence of those who had come before her, their struggles, their loves, their dreams. The barn was no longer just a shelter. It was a sanctuary of memory and possibility. Ben joined her, bringing a small bouquet of wildflowers picked from the meadow. "For Margaret," he said softly. Clara smiled, accepting the gift with gratitude. "And for us," she replied, her voice filled with quiet resolve. Together, they looked out over the fields, the barn standing strong against the fading light. The past and present intertwined, weaving a story of endurance, compassion, and the promise of new beginnings. As the days grew shorter and the chill of early winter crept into the air, Clara felt a subtle shift not only within herself, but also in the way the town viewed her. The barn, once a symbol of neglect and an object of the townspeople's ridicule, had begun to stir their curiosity and even a tentative respect. It was as though the stories Clara and Ben uncovered were breathing new life into not just the building, but also the community's collective memory. One morning, Clara awoke to a soft knock on the barn's weathered door. Pulling her shawl tighter around her shoulders, she opened it to find Mrs. Jenkins standing hesitantly, a basket of freshly baked bread in her hands. The kindly woman's eyes held a gentleness that had been absent in their earlier encounters. "I thought you might like some company," Mrs. Jenkins said softly, stepping inside the warm glow of the barn. "And I wanted to hear more about those letters." Clara smiled, her heart lifting at the gesture. The barn's interior, illuminated by the morning light filtering through cracked windows, felt less lonely with Mrs. Jenkins's presence. The scent of bread mingled with the faint aroma of hay and wood, creating a comforting atmosphere. Over the weeks that followed, more townspeople began to visit the barn, drawn by the unfolding story of Margaret and Thomas. Clara and Ben welcomed them with open arms, sharing the letters and photographs that now decorated the barn's walls. The barn transformed into a gathering place, its creaking beams echoing with voices, eager to reconnect with their shared past. At these gatherings, the townsfolk recounted their own memories, fragments of stories passed down through generations. Old Mr. Harlan spoke of the barn's role during harvest seasons. Mrs. Abernathy recalled neighborhood celebrations held in its shadow. As the tales flowed, the barn ceased to be an isolated relic and instead became a living repository of the town's heritage. Clara found herself at the center of this renewal, her presence gradually woven into the community's tapestry. The initial suspicion faded, replaced by a growing admiration for her courage and dedication. The barn's restoration symbolized more than physical repair. It represented healing fractured bonds and rekindling forgotten connections. One chilly afternoon, Ben arrived with a group of local children, their faces alight with excitement. They gathered around Clara, eager to hear the stories of the barn and the people who had once called it home. Clara smiled as she recounted the letter's tales, watching the children's eyes widen with wonder and empathy. The barn's transformation was mirrored in Clara's own journey. Her pregnancy advanced steadily, the baby's movements a constant reassurance amid the challenges. She no longer felt isolated. Instead, she was surrounded by a community slowly embracing her and the life she carried. During a town meeting held in the local hall, Clara was invited to speak about the barn and its history. Standing before familiar faces that once regarded her with doubt, she shared the stories she and Ben had uncovered, emphasizing the importance of remembering and honoring the past. Her words resonated deeply, sparking plans to preserve the barn as a heritage site. The idea was met with enthusiasm, a sign that the community was ready to embrace change and celebrate its roots. Clara's vision of the barn as a symbol of renewal was taking shape, grounded in the collective pride of the townspeople. One evening, as snowflakes began to fall softly outside, Clara sat by the barn's fireplace, reflecting on the journey so far. The warmth of the flames contrasted with the cold world beyond the walls, mirroring the transformation within her heart. The barn, once silent and forgotten, now buzzed with life and stories, a sanctuary for both past and present. Ben joined her, carrying a steaming cup of herbal tea. "You've done something remarkable here," he said quietly, settling beside her. "The barn's no longer just yours or mine. It belongs to all of us." Clara nodded, a smile touching her lips. "It's more than I ever hoped for. It's become a home in every sense." Together, they looked out the window at the snow-covered fields, the barn standing sturdy against the winter sky. The community's acceptance was a balm to Clara's soul, a reminder that kindness and understanding could bridge even the widest divides. As the season deepened, preparations began for the coming birth. The barn was equipped with warmth and comfort, ready to welcome new life. Neighbors offered support in small but meaningful ways. Mrs. Jenkins brought nourishing meals, the children crafted handmade blankets, and Ben's family provided tools to ensure the barn was safe and secure. Clara felt the weight of their kindness and the strength of their acceptance. The barn, once a place of solitude and suspicion, had evolved into a haven of community and hope. It was a testament to the power of shared stories and the healing that comes from embracing both history and humanity. In the quiet moments before sleep, Clara often thought of Margaret and Thomas, their lives now entwined with her own. The letters had unveiled more than a family tragedy. They had uncovered a legacy of resilience and love that transcended time. And as the first flakes of winter settled gently on the barn's roof, Clara's heart swelled with gratitude. The journey was far from over, but the path ahead was illuminated by the bonds she had forged and the stories she had helped bring to light. The barn, once a symbol of neglect, now stood as a beacon of renewal. A place where the past was honored, the present embraced, and the future awaited with open arms. Winter's grip on Maplewood deepened, blanketing the fields and rooftops in a crisp layer of snow. Inside the barn, however, a different kind of warmth blossomed. A fragile but persistent glow, fueled by Clara's unwavering determination and the growing support that had quietly begun to surround her. Yet beneath this warmth, challenges simmered. threatening to unravel the fragile sanctuary she and Ben had worked so hard to create. The barn's age and neglect were never far from Clara's mind. Despite the efforts to reinforce the structure, the frequent creaks and groans of aging wood echoed through the cold nights, reminding her that safety was a constant concern. On particularly bitter evenings, the draft slipped through gaps in the walls, chilling the space and making it difficult to find comfort. One morning, Clara awoke to a sharp pain that rippled through her abdomen. The quiet barn suddenly felt colder, the shadows longer and more ominous. Fear gripped her, mingling with the uncertainty of what lay ahead. She knew her pregnancy was nearing its final stages, but unexpected complications filled her with dread. Ben was the first to notice her distress. He had arrived early that day, bringing fresh bread and warm tea, only to find Clara pale and trembling. Without hesitation, he wrapped a thick blanket around her shoulders and supported her as she steadied herself against the barn's sturdy beam. "We need to get you to the doctor," Ben said firmly, his voice gentle but insistent. Clara shook her head, fear and pride wrestling within her. The barn was her refuge, the place she had fought to claim. Leaving it now felt like surrendering the progress she had made. Yet the pain was relentless, and Ben's concern was undeniable. Together, they made their way to the town's small medical clinic, the snow crunching beneath their feet. The journey was slow and arduous, the cold biting through their layers, but Ben's steady presence gave Clara strength. At the clinic, the doctor examined her with a furrowed brow, confirming that there were complications requiring careful monitoring. Returning to the barn, Clara felt a mix of relief and frustration. The barn, her sanctuary, suddenly seemed fragile in the face of her own vulnerability. The physical challenges of her pregnancy intertwined with the difficulties of maintaining a safe home, and the weight pressed heavily on her shoulders. Ben stepped seamlessly into the role of caretaker and support. He helped Clara navigate the daily tasks that had become increasingly difficult. The chores around the barn, preparing meals, and simply finding moments of rest. His quiet dedication was a balm to Clara's anxious heart, his presence a steady anchor amid the storm. One afternoon, as they worked side by side repairing a section of the barn's roof damaged by winter storms, Clara's exhaustion became apparent. She leaned heavily against a weathered beam, the cold seeping into her bones despite the thick layers she wore. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Ben paused, wiping sweat from his brow despite the chill. "You're stronger than you think," he replied gently. "But you don't have to do it alone." Clara's eyes met his, gratitude shining through the fatigue. The barn, once a symbol of isolation, was now a place where support and resilience intertwined. Ben's companionship transformed the space into a true home, a sanctuary not just for her body, but for her spirit. The days that followed were a delicate balance of rest and labor, hope and caution. Clara's health fluctuated, and the barn's vulnerabilities became more pressing. The roof leaked during one particularly fierce storm, forcing them to scramble for buckets and tarps to protect the growing nest inside. The community, too, became increasingly aware of Clara's struggles. Neighbors offered assistance in subtle but meaningful ways. Mrs. Jenkins brought nourishing soups and warm blankets, while others volunteered to help with repairs and errands. The barn, once viewed with skepticism, was now at the heart of a network of care and concern. Despite the challenges, Clara refused to relinquish her dream of restoring the barn and raising her child there. Each small repair was a victory, each act of kindness a reminder that she was not alone. The baby's movements, gentle yet persistent, were a source of comfort and strength, anchoring her to the future she was determined to create. One evening, as the wind howled outside and snow piled against the barn's doors, Clara and Ben sat beside the flickering fire. The room was modestly warm, the glow casting dancing shadows on the rough-hewn walls. Clara rested her hand on her belly, feeling the reassuring flutter of life within. "I'm scared," she confessed, her voice trembling. "What if something goes wrong? What if the barn isn't strong enough? What if I'm not strong enough?" Ben reached out, taking her hand in his. "We'll face it together," he said firmly. "This barn, this community, they're all here for you. And so am I." The weight of his words settled over Clara like a protective cloak. In that moment, the barn ceased to be merely a structure. It became a symbol of resilience, community, and unwavering hope. As the weeks passed, Clara's determination grew alongside the baby within her. Though the path was fraught with uncertainty, she embraced the support around her, finding strength in the shared effort to nurture new life amidst the hardships. The barn, weathered and worn, stood as a testament to that collective resilience. Each creak and groan was a reminder of battles fought and victories won, of love and care that had transformed it from a place of neglect to a home brimming with promise. And as winter's chill persisted outside, inside the barn, a quiet warmth endured, a warmth born of courage, community, and the unyielding hope that no matter the trials ahead, new beginnings were possible. The first thaw of spring breathed new life into the land surrounding the barn. Melting snow revealed patches of green and wildflowers timidly pushing through the earth, as if eager to join the quiet resurrection unfolding within the weathered walls. For Clara, the changing season mirrored the transformation she had wrought, not only on the barn, but within herself. The challenges of winter, though formidable, had only strengthened her resolve. Despite lingering uncertainties about her health and the barn's condition, Clara made a decision that felt both daunting and necessary. She would stay. The barn was no longer a temporary refuge, but a home, a sanctuary where she and her child could begin anew. The risk was real, but so was her commitment. This place, with all its scars and strengths, was the foundation for a future she was determined to build. Ben arrived one bright morning with tools slung over his shoulder and a hopeful smile. "Ready to tackle the next phase?" he asked, eyes sparkling with quiet enthusiasm. Clara nodded, her breath visible in the crisp air. "Let's make this barn stronger than ever." Together, they embarked on the painstaking work of restoration. The barn's roof, patched hurriedly during winter storms, needed thorough repair. The wooden beams required reinforcement, and the floorboards demanded attention to ensure safety. Each task was a testament to their shared vision and determination. Neighbors, inspired by Clara's resolve, began to offer their assistance. Mr. Harlan brought sturdy timbers from his own workshop, while Mrs. Jenkins organized meals to keep the workers nourished. The community's hesitant acceptance blossomed into tangible support, reinforcing the sense that the barn was becoming a symbol of collective hope. As they labored side by side, Clara and Ben grew closer, their partnership deepening beyond shared tasks. Their conversations, once focused on the barn's history and repairs, now ventured into dreams for the future. Hopes for the baby, the barn, and the town itself. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled through the open barn doors, Clara paused to catch her breath. She ran her hand over a freshly sanded beam, feeling the smoothness beneath her fingers. "It's going to be a home," she said softly, more to herself than to Ben. Ben smiled, setting down his hammer. A home that stands on stories, old and new. The barn's transformation was not merely physical. It had become a place where past and present converged, where memories once buried beneath dust found new voice. Clara's commitment to restoring the barn was intertwined with her desire to honor the history she and Ben had uncovered, a history that now belonged to the entire community. One evening, after a long day's work, Clara sat by the fire with a worn journal in her lap. She penned thoughts and plans, her handwriting steady despite the exhaustion. The barn's story was evolving, and she wanted to capture every moment, the struggles, the triumphs, and the quiet miracles. Ben joined her, settling beside her with a warm cup of tea. "You've come a long way," he said gently. Clara looked up, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "It's not just me," she replied. "It's all of us. This barn, this town. We're all part of something bigger now." Their shared vision extended beyond the barn's walls. Plans took shape for a community project to preserve the barn and the stories it held. Clara envisioned gatherings where townsfolk could celebrate their heritage, where children could learn about the past, and where support would be available for those starting anew. The idea was met with enthusiasm at the next town meeting. Clara spoke with a quiet confidence, sharing the barn's journey and inviting the community to join in its preservation. Faces once skeptical now shone with hope and pride. As spring unfolded in earnest, the barn blossomed alongside the landscape. Fresh paint brightened the faded exterior, windows gleamed where they had long been clouded, and the interior was filled with warmth and light. The barn was no longer a symbol of decay, but a beacon of renewal. Clara's pregnancy advanced steadily, her strength returning with the support surrounding her. The baby's gentle kicks were a constant reminder of the future she was nurturing, a future rooted in resilience and love. One afternoon, as she rested on a newly built bench beneath the barn's open eaves, Clara watched children from the town play nearby. Their laughter echoed through the air, mingling with the songs of birds awakening with the season. The sight filled her with a profound sense of belonging. Ben joined her, handing her a small bouquet of wildflowers gathered from the meadow. "For the new beginnings," he said softly. Clara accepted the gift, her smile radiant. "For all of us," she replied. Together, they looked out over the fields, the barn standing proudly against the clear blue sky. The journey had been long and arduous, marked by uncertainty and doubt, but it had also been illuminated by kindness, determination, and community. In that moment, Clara felt the weight of her decision settle comfortably within her. She had chosen to stay, to fight, and to build. The barn was no longer just a place to shelter from the storm. It was a testament to the possibility of transformation, a symbol of hope grounded in the strength of shared stories and shared hearts. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting golden hues across the landscape, Clara and Ben rose, ready to face the days ahead. The barn, their home, and their legacy stood firm, a promise of new life, new dreams, and a future forged together. A sudden storm rolled in one late spring evening, dark clouds swallowing the fading light and sending sharp gusts of wind through the valley. Rain pounded against the barn's roof, the steady drumming mingling with the whistle of the wind as it squeezed through the cracks of the old wooden walls. Inside, Clara felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety stirring within her, the baby's restless movements echoing the turmoil outside. She had been feeling the first signs of labor creeping in, waves of discomfort tightening around her abdomen, each one growing stronger and more insistent. The barn, though now sturdy and warm, still held the echoes of its past fragility. But Clara was determined. This was the place she had chosen to welcome new life, a sanctuary that had seen her through every hardship. Ben was at her side, his quiet presence a steady anchor amid the storm. He moved with practiced calm, lighting lanterns and drawing warm water in preparation. His hands, strong and sure, helped Clara settle onto the makeshift bed near the barn's corner, where soft blankets and pillows had been arranged carefully. "You're doing great," Ben whispered, brushing damp strands of hair from her forehead. "We're ready for this." Clara nodded, her breath coming in shallow waves as the contractions intensified. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the barn's shutters, but inside, a fragile calm took hold. A bubble of trust and determination that shielded them from the chaos beyond. Hours passed, marked only by the rhythmic rise and fall of Clara's breathing and the steady encouragement from Ben. He recounted stories of the barn's history, the love and loss embedded in its beams, weaving a tapestry of strength and hope around them. His voice was a lifeline, grounding Clara as she rode the waves of pain. The storm, outside, raged on, thunder rolling over the hills and lightning illuminating the night sky. Yet within the barn, time seemed to stretch and bend, focused solely on the miracle unfolding. Clara's resolve deepened, fueled by the life growing within her and the years of struggle that had brought her to this moment. When the first cry pierced the quiet, it was as though the storm itself paused to listen. Clara, exhausted but radiant, cradled her newborn daughter close, tears mingling with the sweat on her brow. Ben's eyes shone with awe and relief, his hands gently supporting mother and child. They named her Hope. Hope's arrival transformed the barn from a place of shelter to a home brimming with new life and promise. The storm, which had seemed so fierce and unforgiving, gave way to the soft patter of rain and the gentle light of dawn breaking through the clouds. Neighbors soon gathered outside the barn, drawn by the news and the shared joy. The community that had once looked on with suspicion now embraced Clara and her daughter, their skepticism replaced by awe at the strength and courage that had brought new life into their midst. Mrs. Jenkins arrived first, her eyes shining as she handed Clara a carefully wrapped bundle of handmade blankets. "For little Hope," she said softly. "She's a blessing for all of us." The barn, once a symbol of neglect and isolation, now echoed with laughter and warmth. Clara and Ben welcomed visitors, sharing stories of the journey that had brought them here, the trials faced and the dreams realized. As spring blossomed into summer, the barn became a gathering place not just for Clara's family, but for the entire town. It hosted celebrations and quiet moments alike, a testament to resilience, community, and the power of new beginnings. Clara watched Hope grow, her daughter's bright eyes reflecting the same spirit that had carried her through the darkest times. The barn, standing strong against the backdrop of rolling fields and endless sky, was a symbol of everything they had fought for. And as the sun set on that first day of new life, Clara felt a deep, unshakable peace. The barn had become more than a home. It was a legacy of hope, a beacon for the future, and a reminder that even in the fiercest storms, love and courage could light the way forward. The morning sun spilled softly through the barn's open windows, casting a warm glow on the wooden beams that had witnessed so much in recent months. Inside, Clara cradled Hope in her arms, her heart swelling with a tenderness that seemed to fill every corner of their humble home. The baby's gentle breathing and tiny fingers curling around Clara's thumb were the quiet affirmations of new life and new beginnings. Word of Hope's arrival had spread quickly through Maplewood. and the townspeople's attitudes had shifted with it. The skepticism and whispers that once shadowed Clara's steps had softened into admiration and acceptance. The barn, once a symbol of isolation and suspicion, was now recognized as a place of courage and renewal. That morning, the barn's worn doors creaked open to welcome a steady stream of visitors. Neighbors brought gifts, freshly picked flowers, baskets of fruit, and handmade quilts, each gesture a thread weaving Clara and hope more deeply into the fabric of the community. Children from nearby farms peeked inside, eyes wide with curiosity and wonder at the small life growing before them. Mrs. Jenkins was among the first to arrive, carrying a carefully wrapped bundle of soft blankets and warm clothes. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears as she knelt beside Clara. "She's a blessing, that one," Mrs. Jenkins whispered, brushing a stray lock of hair from Hope's forehead. "You and Ben have shown us all what it means to have hope." Clara smiled, overwhelmed by the kindness and the sense of belonging that had blossomed. For so long, she had been an outsider, a quiet figure in the shadows of the town's judgment. Now, surrounded by the warmth of acceptance, she felt something she hadn't dared to hope for before. Home. Ben stood nearby, watching the scene with a quiet pride. His hands were dirt-stained from the day's work restoring the barn's garden, but his eyes were bright and steady. The friendship and trust that had grown between him and Clara had deepened into something unspoken, a bond forged by shared struggles and dreams. As the visitors mingled, the barn transformed into a place of celebration. Laughter echoed beneath its high rafters, mingling with the soft coos of hope and the murmur of conversations rekindled. Stories were shared, of the barn's history, of the hardships faced, and of the triumphs that now defined its future. Clara found herself telling the story of her journey, her voice steady but filled with emotion. She spoke of the challenges and the doubts, of the moments when hope seemed distant, and of the strength found in kindness and community. Her words resonated deeply, inspiring others to look beyond appearances and embrace the possibility of change. The townspeople, once wary, now saw Clara not as an outsider, but as a vital part of their shared story. The barn's restoration had become a symbol of resilience and renewal, a testament to the power of compassion to heal wounds and build bridges. As the afternoon sun warmed the barn's wooden floor, Clara and Ben stepped outside, watching children play in the fields nearby. The sight filled them both with a quiet joy, a promise of the life and love that Hope's arrival had ushered in. Clara's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the fields stretched wide beneath a sky painted with soft clouds. The barn stood firm, a beacon of new beginnings and the enduring strength of community. "This is just the beginning," Ben said softly, his voice carrying the weight of shared hope. Clara nodded, her heart full. Together, we've turned a place of doubt into a home, and that home will hold many more stories. In that moment, surrounded by the laughter and love that now filled the barn, Clara understood that she had found more than shelter. She had found a family, not born of blood alone, but of kindness, courage, and the shared belief that hope could transform even the most unlikely places. The barn, once abandoned and forgotten, had become a sanctuary of life and love, a testament to the power of second chances and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And as the sun set on that joyful day, its golden light wrapped around Clara, Ben, Hope, and the community that had embraced them all, promising a future built on acceptance, history, and new life. Spring had long given way to summer, and the barn that had once stood silent and forgotten now thrummed with life and purpose. The fields surrounding it were alive with the buzz of bees and the sweet scent of blooming wildflowers, mirroring the renewed spirit of the small community that had embraced Clara and her family. What had begun as a solitary journey had blossomed into a shared endeavor, a testament to the power of resilience and connection. Clara and Ben had launched a community project dedicated to preserving the barn and the stories it housed. The project was more than a restoration effort. It was a revival of heritage and identity, a way for the townsfolk to reclaim their history and celebrate the roots that bound them together. The barn was no longer just a building. It had become a living monument to hope and renewal. The project began with the establishment of a local heritage committee, spearheaded by Clara and supported enthusiastically by Ben and several dedicated townspeople. Meetings were held in the barn itself, the space now outfitted with sturdy benches and shelves filled with photographs, journals, and artifacts gathered over the months. These gatherings drew people from all walks of life, from elderly residents eager to share memories to young families curious about their community's past. One afternoon, as the committee reviewed plans for a historical exhibit, Clara stood before the group, her voice steady and filled with quiet passion. "This barn holds more than wood and nails," she said. "It holds the stories of those who came before us, their struggles, their dreams, their love. By preserving it, we preserve our own history and create a place for future generations to connect with their roots." The townspeople nodded in agreement, their faces alight with a shared sense of purpose. The project took on momentum, fueled by volunteer efforts and donations. Local craftsmen offered their skills for carpentry and masonry, while others contributed time to cataloging documents and photographs. Children from the nearby school prepared art projects inspired by the barn's history, eager to participate in the growing legacy. As the restoration progressed, Clara and Ben worked tirelessly, their hands calloused but their spirits buoyed by the communal energy. The barn's walls were reinforced, its roof repaired, and painted a warm, inviting red. Inside, the exhibit space took shape, complete with displays honoring Margaret, Thomas, and the generations who had lived and loved within these walls. The barn also became a gathering place for storytelling nights, where residents shared tales passed down through families, weaving a rich tapestry of the town's heritage. These evenings brought laughter and tears, bridging gaps between generations and fostering a renewed sense of belonging. Amid the bustle of activity, Clara found moments of quiet reflection. Sitting on the barn's porch at sunset, she watched Hope play in the grass, her laughter ringing clear and joyful. The child was the living embodiment of the barn's transformation, a symbol of life's enduring promise amid hardship. Ben joined Clara, offering a drink of cool water and a gentle smile. "You've done something remarkable here," he said. "Not just with the barn, but with all of us." Clara's eyes glistened with gratitude. "It's been a journey, a collective one. The barn brought us together, but it's the people who make it home." The project soon attracted attention beyond Maplewood. Visitors came from neighboring towns to see the restored barn and learn about its history. The heritage site became a destination, fostering pride and economic opportunity for the community. Local businesses flourished as tourists stopped for meals, crafts, and stories. Clara took great care to ensure that the barn remained a place of inclusion and support. The sanctuary she had once sought in solitude was now a refuge for many, offering workshops on parenting, support groups for women in crisis, and educational programs about the town's history and environment. One chilly evening, as autumn crept in and the leaves turned fiery shades of orange and gold, the community gathered for the barn's official reopening ceremony. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a soft, golden glow over the celebrating crowd. Clara stood beside Ben, hope nestled in her arms, as the mayor spoke of the barn's significance. "This barn is more than a building," the mayor declared. "It is a symbol of our town's resilience, our shared history, and our commitment to one another. Thanks to Clara, Ben, and all who contributed, we have a place to honor our past and inspire our future." As applause filled the space, Clara felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The barn had been transformed from a place of abandonment into a beacon of hope, a testament to what could be achieved when a community came together with compassion and purpose. Later that evening, as the crowd dispersed and the barn settled into a peaceful quiet, Clara and Ben lingered beneath the stars. The gentle rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl accompanied their thoughts. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" Clara asked softly. Ben smiled, taking her hand in his. "Every day, and I look forward to what comes next." Clara nodded, her heart full. The barn's legacy was still being written, a story of healing, connection, and new beginnings. And as long as they nurtured it together, the future held endless possibilities. Years later, the barn stood proudly at the edge of Maplewood, its red paint weathered but vibrant, a testament to the love and labor poured into its restoration. The fields surrounding it were no longer just stretches of wild growth, but carefully tended gardens and play areas, alive with the laughter of children and the hum of community life. The barn had become a sanctuary, a hub where history and hope intertwined, and where stories, old and new, found a home. Clara sat on the porch steps, a leather-bound book resting on her lap. The memoir she had written chronicled the journey that had transformed her life and the barn's place in the town's heart. Each chapter was infused with the challenges faced, the kindness received, and the unyielding strength found in unexpected places. The act of writing had been both cathartic and empowering, a way to preserve the legacy of those who had come before, and to inspire others seeking their own paths to healing. Hope, now a lively 8-year-old with bright eyes and a curious spirit, played nearby with a circle of friends. Their laughter carried on the warm summer breeze, weaving through the barn's open doors and into the hearts of all who gathered here. Clara watched her daughter with a swelling pride, grateful for the life they had built together, a life rooted in resilience and community. Ben, ever the steady presence beside Clara, joined her on the porch. His hands were rough from years of work, but his smile was soft and genuine. "You've done something incredible," he said, nodding toward the barn and the bustling scene around it. Clara smiled, her eyes reflecting the late afternoon sun. "We did it together," she replied. "It's more than a building, it's a family." The barn had grown beyond its walls, evolving into a place where women in crisis found support, where children learned about their heritage, and where neighbors gathered to celebrate milestones, both large and small. Clara and Ben had established programs to teach parenting skills, provide counseling, and foster community connections, ensuring that the sanctuary they had created was a source of strength for many. The memoir had become a beacon for others, sparking conversations and inspiring similar efforts in nearby towns. Clara received letters and visits from women who found hope in her story, women seeking refuge and renewal. The barn was not just a home. It was a symbol of second chances and the transformative power of kindness. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in hues of violet and gold, the community gathered to celebrate Hope's 8th birthday. The barn was decorated with ribbons and lanterns, tables laden with homemade treats and gifts. Children's laughter and music filled the air, mingling with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh-cut grass. Clara watched as Hope blew out the candles on her cake, surrounded by friends and family who had become her extended kin. The moment was a culmination of years of hope, struggle, and unwavering love. A celebration not just of a child's birthday, but of the journey that had brought them all here. Ben leaned close to Clara, his voice a gentle whisper. "Look at what we've built. It's more than I ever imagined." Clara nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "It's a legacy of love and resilience, one that will carry on long after we're gone." As the stars emerged overhead, casting a silver glow on the barn and its joyful occupants, Clara felt a deep sense of peace. The barn, once abandoned and scorned, had become a sanctuary of healing and hope. A place where past wounds were soothed, futures were forged, and families were born not just in blood, but in spirit. The story of Clara, Ben, Hope, and the barn was a testament to the extraordinary within the ordinary. A reminder that kindness could transform lives, that courage could break cycles, and that home was where love and acceptance flourished. And as laughter echoed into the night, the barn stood steadfast, a beacon for generations to come. Its doors always open to those seeking shelter, support, and the promise of a new beginning.